You see, in this cutthroat capitalistic world in which we now live, your boy has fallen on hard times. The game is rigged and I am but a casualty, a victim. But I am hopeful.
Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hey everyone, this is Campbell from Mors Verum. The band is from Canada. We just make some noise and music, and I play the guitar in the band. And we're a three-piece band: drummer, guitar, and vocals. Yeah.
And how would you describe the music of Mors Verum?
Well, I would say it started off as super death metal, and because we grew up on very old school stuff. But at this point, it's mostly like we just like to express whatever we feel. So it's mostly experimental, and wherever the song kind of takes us. So that's, long story short, that's like the way I would describe it. Yeah.
Would you say that your sound is still very much rooted in death metal, even though you've expanded to other areas?
Yes. Yeah. I would say yes. It's very much rooted in that, but I would say it's looking like it's leaning towards, because for this particular EP, when I wrote the songs, I was very much inspired by a lot of good like stoner bands, like, from the stoner rock genre, because of the way they create like this trance and like a hypnotic kind of ambient. So I think it's like it's a bit of both, but it kind of like complements each other in some sense, where like the one keeps the other grounded, kind of thing. Yeah.
And I should mention that you also play in ischemic, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I play the drums in ischemic. Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about the history of Mors Verum and how the project came together?
Yeah, sure. Well, it goes like way back than 2014, which is where it kind of came to fruition. But me and my vocalist, we were like best friends, and when we were teenagers, and we always like listened to metal together and wanted to form a band. So that's where we met. He was obviously more inclined towards vocal ever since then, and I was more towards the instrumentation. So we used to always like screw around with like composing and like just taking fun and just like trying new stuff, like if this would work and what would not work. Obviously using like metal, but eventually we moved to North America. He moved to the States. I moved to Canada, and we were like, let's put out something. That's when we put like our first EP out, which was basically he sent me all the tracks online, and then we somehow figured it out. We just wanted to put something because the creative juices were flowing. So we're like, let's do it. And then fortunately for me, he ended up moving to Canada. So now we do everything from here. So yeah, and then 2015 is when we started like kind of putting our foot out there in the underground scene in Canada, where we used like a drum machine to play a lot of shows. But fortunately, we were still well received, and we kind of like built our fan base from there, at least locally. So, and now it was about time when, as soon as we found drummer to get this EP going with like the full band and showcase that. So yeah, now I think this is the perfect time when it's come to like everything is like lined up. So yeah, that's the whole kind of history of the band, I would say. Yeah.
Now, on that first EP and your first album, Deranged, were you playing the drums or were you using programmed drums?
Oh no, I was using programmed drums for sure. But yeah, my whole goal was to make it sound like as real as possible. So, but it was programmed drums, Superior Drummer, the usual like, metal standard drumming software to go to, I guess. But I spent a lot of time, and ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be a drummer. So I had all this like drum licks and ideas and grooves. So they all came into like existence in that Deranged album. And the drummer we are playing with currently we were like his fan ever since we met him way back in like when we just started to play shows. We met him with his other band, and we always wanted him to be our drummer. So I kind of like try to emulate his drumming when I programmed it, and his feel and accenting. So I had some sort of roadmap. So, but yeah, in short, it was programmed. Yeah.
But on those early EPs, you were playing all the instrumentation, right? Guitar and bass?
Yes. Yeah. Everything. Yeah. And yeah, the vocals just the vocals, and the lyrics were handled by Lyndon, who's my best friend. So yeah.
Lyndon Quadros, I should mention, is your vocalist.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Did you guys have any other goals or intentions besides forming a band and playing death metal?
Like, you mean musically, or do you mean
anything? Any other reason?
In general?
Yeah, just in general.
In general, like me personally, I can say for myself, like I just love playing shows, like local or supporting, whatever, just like being on the stage and performing. And then my whole take was that, if I were to do it, I want to make people feel something, like when I'm on the stage, like they should feel the energy. And so I've personally always focused on that. As far as Lyndon goes, well, he's actually a data scientist over here in Canada, so he really enjoys working with that apart from music. Like he does the programming and all that stuff. So that he has other goals, I guess. Like he also mentioned that he wanted to open a brewery at some point. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah. But as for me, I'm just a studio music, just by the book music kind of guy. So that's our motivation too, like for shows and songwriting and all that stuff. So yeah.
I mean, in terms of Mors Verum, did you set out to accomplish anything other than just making music and taking it as it goes?
Well, mostly it was playing for just playing big show. Like that was our thing. And also creating album that people could just put on and like, one of those albums, like there's bands like Aepoch, there's bands like some really good bands that basically have made us big music fans. So just trying to like further that energy with our band. That was mostly the goal. Other than that, it was everything. Yeah. Other than that, as you said, it's like, we'll take it as it comes. And if it feels right, we'll just do it. If it doesn't, then it's okay. Like, so yeah, so something like that. Yeah.
How do songs typically come together for you guys?
So up till now, actually, up till this EP, it's mostly been me who basically arranges the songs. So I basically, I just get all these ideas and I see something, all right, here's something in my head. And then I just basically try to record it and make it sound as close to as it's in my head in my demo version. And then I send it out to Lyndon, and then Lyndon tries to see if he's feeling anything or if he has any ideas. And then he gives me some ideas, and then we kind of go back and forth. And then we first get the arrangement and the flow of things just solid, lay the foundations. And then Lyndon sits with it and sees what kind of concept or what kind of lyrical themes would work with the song and with whatever the tone of the album is coming out to be. So that's pretty much how mostly it comes to fruition. We just kind of like let it do its thing. Like once it's like started, then it kind of tells you as to where it needs to be, and then we just kind of stay honest with that and be like, okay, well, if a part in it doesn't need to be there, then that's that. Like even if it's a really cool part or whatever. So just trying to keep it super grounded, but while still being like exciting enough. Yeah. So.
Do songs typically start with riffs for you?
They used to, but now not. Like for this EP, a lot changed. I feel like my mindset changed. I took some break from writing too in between. So for this EP, it came out mostly with the flow of things. I was listening to a lot of psychedelic music actually. So it was mostly based on that. But because I've been like riffing for so long, that was just an inevitable like byproduct of expressing that the flow of things, I would say. Yeah. So that's how it kind of like came to be, I would say. Yeah. So I think it's going more towards just concept and flows from this point, but still, like I'm a fan of riffs. The inner child in me obviously wants to play riffs. So that creeps in. I just let it creep in whenever it wants to, kind of thing. Yeah.
Can you expand on that a little bit? When you say you start with a flow, what does that mean actually?
Oh, so like what I would say is like if you just start with the flow, like, so you just kind of have to. Maybe you get like a pulse going, right? Like in your head, you have some sort of tempo going, whatever it could be, I mean, I know in heavy metal, it's mostly people like stick to the click tracks and all that stuff. But I'm trying to even get away from that because it's just a pulse. So you just start hearing a pulse in your head and you just take that pulse and try to become like one with it. And then eventually you'll find that the pulse is telling you to change or to go in a direction. So it's mostly at that point, it's literally just bare bones pulse. That's it. There's no melody in the head. There's no riffs. There's nothing. Just bare pulse. But once I get that, the pulse is what decides the flow. So once I get the pulse going, then it's like, okay, now I'm gonna add. That is my base layer. Now that's the flow of things. Now how can I write riffs or make sounds that will justify this pulse through and through? Not only that, but also layer it, so that everything else in the bigger picture also gets justified. So it's kind of like a puzzle, but that's something I enjoy doing, like once I get into it. So if that makes sense, yeah.
So on November 5th, which is today for me when we're having this conversation,
yes,
you'll be releasing your new EP, The Living. Can you tell me a little bit about this EP and how it came together?
Sure, yeah. This mostly came together, I guess, just like a lot of bands, I guess, out there with the COVID and the lockdown hitting really hard for everybody for shows. It was just, Lyndon was sharing my place with me because we were living together. So I was just sitting there and like, when our show's going to happen, and it didn't look like shows were going to happen. We wanted to promote our previous release as well. And well, that didn't look like it was going to happen anytime soon until now, I guess. So I was like, okay, well, I don't have time to waste. So I need to see what I can, like, just start jamming with myself. And like I said, like the pulse and the rhythm just started to come. And I was like, okay, well, let's see what comes of it. And after like a couple of months, it seemed like a solid couple of two or three songs. And then showed it to Lyndon. Lyndon was feeling it too. So I was like, okay, well, like this is good. So then I fed off his energy and then tried to complete the whole album as I would want it to sound, like if somebody listens to it like from front to back kind of thing. And then just after that, Lyndon took some time with it, figured out his vocals and lyrics. And this was still when there was no show, so we had like plenty of time. So we really took our time with that. And then I did a couple of demos and then reached out to our studio guy. His name is Jonah. He lives in Waterloo. That's where I am right now. And so he helped us with recording and tracking drums. And we're fortunate that the drummer also approached us at the same time. He's saying that I would like to join the band basically and help you with recording this EP. So I was like, okay, this is perfect. And so then everything just kind of, we just let it fall in its place. Everything just kind of like came one after another. And by the time it was start of 2021, we were looking at something pretty solid. So that's pretty much how this EP, I would say, came together. Yeah.
You mentioned taking influence from stoner rock and psychedelic music.
Mm-hmm.
Would you describe this EP as being psychedelic?
I would say if people can kind of see it from that perspective as well, that would make me really happy, because when I wrote this EP, like one of my goals was to put myself into a trance when I heard it from front to back. It's like I wanted myself to feel like once it started, it's basically, it slowly sucks you in, and you don't even realize like, oh, like when did this happen? And then it's just and then but you let go and you just let it take you where it wants. So personally, I would have hoped that it's people who might be listening to metal and psychedelics, who know what the stuff, like what's what, may kind of identify that as a psychedelic EP, but not that obvious, obviously, because at the end of the day, once I started putting the pieces of puzzles together, it sounds like a very just aggressive EP, but that's the whole point. Like in that aggression, there's some sort of a steady calm. I would say that I guess if people could see it, that would be pretty cool. Yeah.
Greg Carvalho is the drummer on this EP. I think he's mostly known for his work with Aepoch.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, this is your first release with him. Can you tell me a little bit more about working with Greg and how he came on board?
Yeah, that's a good story actually, because the first show Mors Verum ever played with the drum machine, it was with Aepoch in Toronto, and we didn't know each other at the time. It was like back in 2016. Yeah, but we played, and Greg really liked the drums I had programmed. He just really connected with those the drum programming. So he came up to us and he's like, this is like, and he just showed his interest that he would, if we were living in his town, we would totally play it. Like he would totally help us out and like play it. But obviously I was living in Toronto at the time, and he was 1 hour away, 1.5 hours away. So it didn't really come to fruition, and he was busy with Aepoch a lot. They were doing a lot of tours and stuff. So, but then when COVID hit, basically he had a lot of free time. So we connected again, and then started to jam. I started driving to his hometown and ended up moving here basically, because once things were like solid. So that's how he ended up joining the band, and he started feeling the music too. Like he likes the fact that I arrange everything and then, present it to him. So he's very organized, stuff like that. So as far as working with him, it's super, like we are super understanding of each other, and most of the times we don't even like practice our songs. We usually just do this long free flow jams just to see like just have like kind of musical conversation with each other. It's only when we have to play shows we just get into the practice mode, and so that's like working with him. And as far as studio recording goes, I would say he's very professional. He gets in the zone and like doesn't like very like you can basically blindly trust him to record your tracks, and there's just like no limitations for him, like tempo limitations, nothing. He would just do it if he feels it. So it has been very fortunate for us to have him. Yes, and that he's interested in our music, so it's really good.
So did Greg contribute to the songwriting or arranging at all, or was it mostly done by the time he came on board?
It was mostly done by the time he came on board. Yeah, it was mostly done by me. Because I had no idea that Greg was gonna, this was actually gonna happen. Like Greg was officially gonna be joining us. I was still kind of like we were still jamming and stuff. So I had already written all the I'd already programmed the drums. But that being said, I would say that like he essentially took those programmed drums, and literally breathed like put his own life into it, and made some very subtle changes, but on a bigger picture, they made like a big difference to the EP, the whole feel of things. So I do give him like I would still give him like writing credit on it, because at the end of the day he performed his own kind of like expression of my programmed drums. So yeah, so that's where.
Now, is Greg considered a full-time member of the band, or is this another see how it goes kind of thing?
Oh no, he's for sure a full-time member. Yeah, but that's officially we did make an announcement as well when we all had a talk, and it was all good. So yeah, he is in it for the long haul, and he's pretty excited too. So no, he's the drummer. We've sorted the drummer situation here. Yes. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the recording. You mentioned you recorded this with Jonah Kay. Can you tell me a little bit about working with Jonah?
Sure. Yeah, he's a very very systematic guy. Like he likes doing things very meticulously, and which is great because it just gets you in the flow of doing the recording, and not like super like he helps you focus with your stuff. And yeah, it's very at the same time it's very relaxed. Like he's a very very calm guy and very very knowledgeable person technically. So he helped me basically with the guitar tone that you hear on the EP is him. That's his creativity, I would say, like, because he just told me to play and I was just like playing, and he's like, you know what, we're gonna try this tone, and I wasn't sure how it's gonna be, but it actually worked out. And we also realized later that like one of my tubes in the amps was blown, but even after that, whatever sound he ended up controlling, so he ended up making it nice and thick. So that's like total credit goes to him for the tone. And even the drums was tracked by him, and he, again, a very very good technical know-how with mic placements and everything else, and super relaxed and just no pressure. Just you could just be comfortably recording with him. I actually end up renting a studio right next to him, so now me and him are neighbors. So that's another cool thing. Yeah. And
you handled some of the recording on this EP as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. I basically recorded the bass and the vocals, and they were bass and the vocals, because by the time I had my own studio up and running. So yeah. And then I did the mixing, and as for mastering, Topan Das, he's amazing. I'm a big fan of him and all his projects. So there's like no brainer to give him like this album to like do the finishing touches. So yeah.
Yeah, Topan Das is the bassist.
He's a guitarist
from Fuck the Facts. He's also an engineer who works with a lot of bands in Canada, and his studio is Apartment 2. He also mastered your previous album, right?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Why Topan? What would you say he brings to your sound?
Well, the biggest thing he brings is he preserves, which is why I just really love his style, is because he preserves the original life that the music was intended to give to the listener. So he has this ability to preserve that, even though like obviously I'm guessing he's making a lot of mastering moves, and he has a lot of techniques, but the way he uses it with a purpose. It's not just about like loudness or anything like that. It's more like I can feel his character in there, and it's very unique, and it's not cliche at all, which is what I like, because he doesn't. I personally think he probably doesn't fear like experimenting with his mastering, just as I experiment with my composing and mixing. So like I tend not to stick to the traditional sound rather, or like traditional methods, or like I just go wherever the music wants me to go, even for the sound. So I think he probably has. I'm guessing he has the same approach. At least that's what I feel every time I've mastered with him. The other reason is the last EP, the last album we mastered with him, even though it was like drum machine, and like it's a hard to with drum machines. It can either go two ways. It can either sound way too computerized, or like it could just sound like a bad mix. But even that, he stayed true to that. He's like, okay, well, this is a drum machine, but it's made to sound real. So I'm going to find a sweet spot where it sounds great. So like, that's what I felt from his mastering, and it's really, really flexible to work with, and just good vibes, I think that's very important in music, even if it's metal, just good vibes. So I just get good vibes, and then we just go from there. So yeah, so there you go.
Now, with the more psychedelic sound and intent behind the album, did that lead you to mix this album any differently? Did you have a different approach for this one?
Yes, very much. Yeah, that was actually one of the governing factors when I mixed it, is that, like certain frequencies would keep you always like awake, and certain frequencies kind of put you in like a, just make you chill out and like lay you back and stuff like that. So kind of made my creative decisions on the basis of that. Cause yeah, I mean, like the aggression is there, but like, yeah, like the aggression is always going to be there, but it's more, we also want to put the listener in like a hypnotic state as much as I can. Cause we like some of the bands, let's see, like biggest one, like I would say Imperial Triumphant or like Artificial Brain, and a couple of bands from, I would say like Profound Lore Records, like they have some amazing bands. So I've noticed that with those bands is like, no matter what genre they are, they have this mixed quality where it's like they you can hang out to it and you can even have a conversation and it still sinks in within your psyche somehow. And I think it's like, the mix helps with that. So yeah, for sure. That would be a governing factor, I would say, yeah.
With the EP done, what are you guys planning for the future?
We're gonna basically try to write another full-length album now that the EP is done, and we have like a full band. So we want to write something as organic as possible between us and the way we work. We want to try out, like actually put to test if all this works, and just write an album that will, make people feel something and make them like, kind of put them in a trance-like state of some sort of their own nature, I guess. And that's one of the goals. But other than that, we just want to grow as a band as we go. Like we want to do a lot of shows. We love playing shows. So we can get on like tours. We're going to look for Canadian tours, like try to expand towards the West End and then the Midlands of Canada, where it's like Edmonton, Calgary. We have mostly stuck to the East Coast of Canada. So that's something surely we're going to look into, like how we can expand there and see how it goes from there. Yeah. So those are like near future goals for sure. Yeah.
So is Canada opening up now? Are people able to play live and go on tour and stuff like that?
Yes, for the most part, I think, yeah, like it is opening up internally in Canada, but I've seen a lot of bands trying to come from United States. They usually get canceled for some reason, even like the bigger bands, I guess. So I don't know what's going on there. I think there's some sort of issue with the border crossing, but I would say locally it has started. Like we ended up playing one show a month ago, and then we have another show coming up on December 16th. And then in between, I have my other projects, who are also playing shows. So like, it looks like it's basically picked up, and it's kind of back to normal, because I did see a mosh pit last time I went to a show. So I don't think people are, I think people are getting relaxed, and so yeah. So I mean, that's good news, I guess. Yeah.
So by the time people hear this podcast, The Living will be out. Perfect. Campbell, yeah. What's the best way to order the EP? How can people get it?
So the best way would be to go to our Bandcamp, which would be morsverum.bandcamp.com, and that's where you'll get the digital release of the EP. There's also our older releases out there, so you can always check that out. Also, and if you want a physical copy of it, we have Total Dissonance Worship. They're a boutique label. They distribute a lot of other bands too, which is great, like experimental bands. So they will be handling our shipping for the physicals, so you can get it from there. And then we have, we have some t-shirts for merch, and yeah. So that's the best place to get our release, yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about Total Dissonance Worship? Because I'm actually not familiar with that label.
Yeah, they're a label based out of Portland, Oregon in the States. And the guy who runs the label plays in another dissonant kind of like death metal band, experimental as well. Like it's called the Nightmare. So Nightmare and then ER, so Nightmare. Yeah, so they actually sonically very, very, like we are very close, like Mors Verum and that band. So he reached out to us, and they also distribute other bands like Imperial Triumphant, Tapes, and then a couple of more Vitrol. Yeah, there's some interesting bands on their label. So yeah, they recently started out, I would say, like a couple of years, but they've grown a lot for the amount of time they've been around. So yeah, they're just a nice, very experimental label, and they handle the CDs and the physical for all the bands that are like just starting out underground and experimental, essentially. Yeah.
And if people want to follow Mors Verum online and keep up to date with what you guys are doing, what's the best way to do that?
The best way would be to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. That's where we usually make all the updates. You can also surely subscribe to us on YouTube, because YouTube is where we'll put out all our live show footage, and we'll put out our any sort of like playthroughs and singles or whatever we're working on, because it's easy. You don't have to log in on YouTube. You just watch it. So YouTube is always there. But yeah, if you're on Facebook, that's always going to keep you posted about anything that's happening with the band. So yeah, there you go.
So we mentioned your other band, Ischemic. Do you want to say anything more about the band? I understand you guys released an album quite recently, right?
Yeah, you mean Ischemic, right?
Ischemic, yeah.
Yes, yeah, we released an album right during COVID as well. That's when I was just started writing Mors Verum stuff, but I was heavily into recording and playing drums for Ischemic. Yeah, that was a good, like I said, I have like a lot of psychedelic and stoner and doom metal influences, just the slow stuff. So Ischemic, that album was a pretty good kind of like, it kind of like connected me to my roots about all that old school doom, and actually influenced New Mors EP too in certain ways, because they have a very different style of writing. We usually jam and write stuff. So yeah, and that EP, or well, we intended it to be an EP, but the songs just turned out to be too long, and it was an album. So yeah, but it was a good time spent recording drums and even mixing their album. So yeah, that's the album. Yeah, they're a great band. I like playing with them. It's just good vibes again. So yeah.
How do you describe their music?
Well, Ischemic is more, they're also very experimental. Like they like being very challenging with themselves and trying to be like, what if we did that and what if we do that? The guitarist of the band, who actually writes most of the stuff, his musical taste is like is really a lot. It's very broad. Like his spectrum is all over the map, and I think he's shown me a lot of interesting bands over the time I've spent with them, and I think that's got to do with the whole influence with this whole psychedelic and Mors Verum stuff. But yeah, so they basically, yeah, he writes the song and we just, yeah, so I'm sorry, I forgot your question. What was your question? Sorry.
I'm just curious how you describe their music.
Oh,
to me, it's kind of like a Black and Doom or Death Doom kind of thing. Yes,
yeah. Well, they started off like that, but yeah, now it's like they go more towards like influenced by Thou. Have you heard of the band Thou?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like stuff like that. More grief oriented. Like even though it's death doom, but it's more like we try to keep it like more fresh. I've noticed that we don't lean strictly towards the old school style of writing. There's some melodies and like some experimentation for sure going on. So yeah.
Yeah, the release that they put out this year, it's self-titled, right?
Yes, it's self-titled. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite good if people want to check it out. I've actually been meaning to reach out to the band, so maybe we'll do like a 1-2 Mors Verum Ischemic double episode.
Sure, yeah, no, for sure. I can talk to them and yeah, we can figure something out, yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, not much. I would say I hope everything is great in Malaysia, I guess. You're in Malaysia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope to all the fans and metal fans in Malaysia, I hope they're doing well and hope they're headbanging and getting their dose of metal and music. Yeah.
Thanks, Campbell.
Yeah, thank you so much.